Hey everybody, Ben here from the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl Dream Team's Lizardmen. So this was suggested by a couple of viewers, and I think it's a really cool thing to look at. And what we're doing is we're looking at every team in Blood Bowl and finding out how they can look at 1250, at 1500 and at 1750. So really we're kind of taking a dive into how the team can progress, regardless of how you start, regardless of what skills you want to choose, because you can do whatever you want with your team, and every team's going to be different and every league is going to be different, so the priorities of your skills are going to be different. But if you're building a Lizardman team and running it in a place where you can face any team at any point, this is what I think would be a really good way to run your team. And the reason we're checking at 1250, 1500 and 1750 is because those are very logical steps in your league progression. You know, it's basically like 6 to 10, 10 to 15 and 15 to 20 games in. Most leagues are going to have redrafting, so when you get to the top end of 1750, your team's probably going to get reduced back down to 1500, 1250 ready for your next season. So it's really a look at what's good, how to progress, and at what point your team should have certain things. So we'll start at 1250. Regardless of how you build your team to begin with, this is where I think you're going to be shooting for after your first extra $250,000 added to your team. So whether you start with 4 Sauruses and a Croxigore or 6 Sauruses, no Croxigore, by the point you get to 1250, this is how I think your team will probably look. So by this point, you've purchased your Croxigore and or you've purchased the Saurus blockers to get up to 6. That's what we're looking at here, and this is where your team starts to become optimum in my mind. Okay, so at 1250 you've got the Crocs, big tick. You've got your big guy. He's a solid piece of the team. You've got Saurus blockers now. Now Sauruses are not going to be scoring touchdowns. They might get some MVPs and they will definitely get you some casualties. So as those Sauruses develop, they want to get block. I know it's boring, but it is exactly the right thing. Have a look at some Lizardmen team that win tournaments. What have they got? 6 block. I've got Bloxigores everywhere. So by the 1250 mark, your Saurus blockers who are not speedily developing, you probably have around about 3 of them getting block, and your goal is to get all 6 to block. When we look at the 1500 list, we'll kind of look at what skill to take after they get block, but doesn't even matter. Right now you're focusing on getting those Sauruses some casualties to get them that first skill. Block is going to protect them, and it's going to help you get more SPP, so it kind of snowballs. Your roster will probably have a Chameleon Skink and some Skink runners on it as well. So I think one Chameleon is bang on where you want to be as far as Lizardmen come. It is slower and it's more expensive than a Skink, but that on the ball ability is just going to save you half a turn. Okay, it may be not move 8 all of the time, it's movement 10 when you receive though, because you get 3 free squares, and if your opponent ever gets to take any pass action ever, he just gets 3 squares. Might have to dodge, sure, but that's massive. Comes with shadowing, which is a skill I don't recommend him ever using because it means that the Chameleon's probably just going to get punched in the face, but that on the ball makes him an incredibly useful piece. Plus, he comes with a cheeky passing stat of what, 3+? That's really good. So he gets the ball, farms it out to somebody else. 3+ is not the best roll in the game, but it is going to massively help. You're going to have 4 Skinks on top of that as well, and they are going to be the guys who do the scoring. Now, when it comes to skills for these players, Blood Bowl 2020 really helps you out. So there are some players you just don't really want to level up because they're expendable, because they don't do much, or because the first level up doesn't really give you anything. Skinks are a cracking example of this. So one Skink is going to get a level up. It's going to hit 6 SPP, and I do recommend, and I do quite like, one with Sprint, okay? It just gives you that extra bit of movement. Just one of them is faster than the others. With all the other Skinks though, just save those SPP. And that's the great thing here about Blood Bowl 2020. These Skinks can score 5 touchdowns apiece, be on 15 SPP, and they're the same value as every other player. Okay, but when you get to 12 SPP, you get to start considering taking a secondary skill. And again, we'll look at that at 1500. One of them is Sprint, fantastic. If you want to go sidestep instead, that's absolutely fine. It just gives you that little bit of mobility, and quite frankly, it just hurts to not get a level up. Now, the Chameleon Skink is going to get some SPP as well. If you can get that Chameleon Skink up to level 2, which I think isn't going to be too difficult because he's going to be the primary ball carrier, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity for him with movement 7 to just be able to score on turn 3, turn 4, surrounded by skink shields. He's still dodging on a 3++ forever, so he's just fine. And 2 movement, 2 turns at speed 7 is 14 squares, and the end zone's only 13 squares away. So he's just going to be able to score basically as quickly as your skinks, no problem at all. Diving catch is a skill I love on chameleon skinks. They've got on the ball, all right? So what this does, you may be thinking, why don't I save up and take sure hands? Fair enough. Why don't I take catch? Fair enough. Diving catch is going to give you a free opportunity to pick up that ball, all right? You are going to get it kicked to you. This dude's going to be able to move 3 squares, okay? So he's bang on the sweet spot. You've already got a 7x7 grid where you can receive the ball. Diving catch makes that a 9x9 grid, okay? And your backfield's only 15 squares wide. So basically anything within that center zone, anything out, you know, if it's in a wide zone, you still actually have a bit of movement to get him there. And what it's going to do is just most of the time give you a cheeky 4+ attempt to grab that ball out of the sky. That is a massive window, and it's so underrated. Okay, you're just going to start most series with him being 3 squares closer to where you want him to be, and potentially with the ball. Half the time, basically, he's going to end up with the ball, and that's just going to save you rerolls. That's going to save you the opportunity to drop that ball and end your first turn. But the other thing, and this is why diving catch I recommend rather than catch, you've got 3 squares of movement to move. You do not have to move directly at the ball, so he can position himself wherever you want. But if the ball lands and is going to land within his radius, you don't have to put him underneath it. You can put him 1 square in front of it, 1 square closer to the line of scrimmage. He's still going to be catching it on a 4+. He's just going to end up 1 square closer to the line of scrimmage and where you want him to be. You just have to be next to the square landing. So basically it takes OTB on the ball and makes it a 4 square movement now. But actually you get to pick where you want him to be. So if the top left corner is going to be better for you and closer to where you want your cage to be, well, he's got a great opportunity at doing that. And actually, you know what? Play for your outs, because with a cheeky 4+ pass, that's 50% of the time. He's just going to start the series with the ball. How's your movement 8 versus movement 7 argument now? Diving catch, chameleon skink, superb. Totally recommend. Now, at this point, you should have also picked up an apothecary because your players are expensive. You've had to save up to get that Croxagore. You've had to save up to buy your Saurus blockers. And you've probably had to play with a skink journeyman once or twice as well. That apothecary is going to keep these key players. There's nothing worse than absolutely binging the games, finally getting block on a Saurus and having him die. Apothecary is going to save you a ton of games there. You are probably, however, at this point still stuck on 2 rerolls, which is really tough. But the only way you can counter that is by buying a reroll instead of a Croxagore. I mean, you get to use your reroll once per half. You get to use a Croxagore 16 turns per half. That's 8 of mine and 8 of yours. Okay, go for Croxagore all the time. Even if you never activate the Croxagore, your opponent is going to have to move around him. He's got prehensile tail, and there are going to be some times where you really are happy to use that Mighty Blow Strength 5 piece. Okay, Croxagore is better than a team reroll in my opinion, and at 1250, a Crocs 3 Bloxagores, and 3 Saurus with block, 3 Saurus without block, chameleon skink potentially with diving catch to really help speed up your offense, and a skink with sprint just for the lols. This team is really potent. Then we land at 1500 or 1490 as this is. So you've already got the core of your team by now. You've got the Crocs, you've got those Sauruses, you've got a chameleon, you've got skinks. Okay, what's that? 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You've got 12 players, you've got a bench, you've got that apothecary. From 1250, all you're doing is saving up and buying rerolls. Now, 4 rerolls is probably about as many as you want to get, and it's going to take plenty of time to get there. I mean, what are the rerolls each? 140k each, and say you're winning games, you're scoring TDs. That's 4 games per reroll, basically. That's not too bad, but if you think about the staging of these teams, that's basically, if you're running a 16 game season, By the end of that 16 game season, you should be around about 1500 up to 1750. If you run a short season, 8 to 10 games, then you're going to be, basically it's 8 games per stage in this list based on cash flow and average winnings and things like that. So 1500, by now you've maxed out what you want from rerolls at 4. Any more than that, you just add to TV. You can now obviously just shoot a bunch of rerolls in one turn, so they are more beneficial than they used to be, but you've got the primary part of your team already cooking at 1250. You've got block on those Sauruses, you've got your Croxigor in place, you've got your Skink army in place, and all we're going to do now is start developing that team into an absolute monster. And I think it's appropriate, though, as we're talking about monsters, the Croxigor is the first one here. So there are 2 angles you can take with your Crocs. One is to use him as a blitzer, one is to use him as a blocker. If you want to use him as a blitzer, then the first skill should probably be Juggernaut. But the thing is with the Croxigor, he's Edge 5+, and Break Tackle does not work the way it used to. Break Tackle means that he's going to be bouncing into the open on a 3+. Now this guy's got Loner 4+. Those are not great odds. Everybody's trying to pick up the ball with a human with a sure hands and failed, let me tell you. Dodging with a Croxigor, not so good. So I actually prefer the idea of using that Croxigor and maximizing his block element. Take Brawler. Or save up and take Pro. I would rather get Brawler on the go. Brawler is going to turn basically a third of your 2-die blocks into a 3-die block. Okay, it's going to help you sneak that extra pow in. It's going to save you from a both down result quite a lot of the time. And the more and better profitable blocks you're making with the Croxigor, the faster he's going to develop. But quite frankly, once you've got a combat skill on the Croxigor, you are good to go. So if you are more patient, if you're not in a hurry, you can just save. Wait for all 6 casualties and take block on the Crocs. That's not a bad place to be. If you're not up for that, then take Brawler, get it on there. Most of your blocks are going to be way better. I mean, I've played a ton of Black Orcs right now, and 2-die block with Brawler, it's just a magical thing, because you're just like, okay, let's go for it. And if you are blocking with the Croxigor and you've got Mighty Blow, a both down is fine. Like, both down is absolutely fine. Your armor, what, 10? Armor 9, armor 10, you get Mighty Blow against them. Like, it's going to be fine. You're going to do that, and you're going to score some casualties anyway. It's not the worst thing in the world. Not a great idea, and obviously stack your big guy blocks appropriately, but taking a both down is going to be fine. And if you've got Brawler, there's always the chance you can turn it into a coconut or something and have just a wonderful time. Now, by this time, the rest of your Sauruses should be landing at block, and one of them's probably got enough, another 8 SPP to get you a skill. And this is where you start piling on that murder train, okay? You take Mighty Blow. You've then got 6 Sauruses with block, and 1 with Mighty Blow as well, which means you've just got this incredible front line of armor, massive anti-killing team. It's just fantastic. You've got the Crocs with Mighty Blow. As those Sauruses develop and you get more Mighty Blow, you're just going to be doing 2-die block Mighty Blow, 2-die block Mighty Blow, 2-die block Mighty Blow, and all your friends are going to think, you're a movement 6 dwarf coach now. And you know what? You are. And that is a very good thing, because it's much easier to get block and Mighty Blow than it is to get movement 6 on a dwarf blocker. So, I think it's fair to say. Chameleon Skink still hanging out with Diving Catch, saving those SPP. Skink Runners, you've got that sprint guy, and everybody else is saving those SPP, because there's nothing you really want on a Skink from agility. There's just not. One sprint's going to be great, and actually maybe developing him into a sprint sidestep is going to help you with a 1-turn touchdown angle, but your Lizards, that's not what your game is. You don't need it. You can score in 2 turns, no problem at all. There is just never a game where you can't score in 2 turns. You've got Chameleon Skink with on the ball and diving catch, with a cheeky passing 3+ stat. Going to be able to do 3+ to hand off to most Skinks with that movement window as well. So you're going to be able to score whenever you need to. But if you do want that 1-turn touchdown element, chuck sidestep on that sprint Skink runner, and then you just need to do, what, 2 chain pushes to give him 11 movement, and he's in there for that 1-turn touchdown. You're still with 4 rerolls. You've got that apothecary to keep people alive, and really you're just not missing anything, with the exception of tackle, and that's something you really need to consider at this point, and this will depend on the meta of your league. If your league is full of stunties and elves, then actually dropping a couple of block Saurus for a tackle Saurus is going to be great for you. But it depends on your league. We're playing for vanilla here. If you're playing against all comers at random points, so think in the future when we've got Blood Bowl 3 on the go, Blockasaurus is a superb place to be, but if you are in a dodge heavy environment, starting to take those movement 6, strength 4 tackle pieces is gonna lose you friends. And finally, we're hitting the 1750 mark here, and this is where it really goes from good to great. 4 rerolls is all you need. That apothecary you've already got. He's keeping your players alive. Their armor is keeping them alive. Right, by now that Croxagore should be hitting his 2nd level, and I do recommend Brawler Guard for Crocs. The reason for that is you're playing up against other 15, 16, 1700 teams. They are going to have Guard. You're going to need your Guard to counter their Guard to make sure that your strength, which is better than theirs, maintains that element of being better than theirs. So a Brawler Guard Croxagore is going to be in the thick of it, and he's going to be smashing face. Now, alternatively, like I said, you can not take Brawler, save up those SPP and get a Bloxagore, and then save up even longer. It's just going to take you quite a long time to get that Croxagore there. I like the immediacy of Brawler and Guard, and really the choice is, do you want Brawler and Guard, or do you want Block? It's a tough choice, it's down to you, but that's one of the biggest decisions you get to make on this team. You've got Saurus blockers, which I've somehow managed to say there's 13. There's not 13. What we do have, though, is some element of a mixture, and this is where their 2nd skill comes in. This is when they hit level 3. So we had already got everybody with block and 1 of them with mighty blow. You want to fill out probably with another 2 with mighty blow. Then you can intersperse the remaining with guard and tackle depending on what your league looks like. Like I said, tackle is going to be great if you're in a dodge heavy environment. If you're in a bash heavy environment, and that guard is going to help keep your strength on top of theirs. So mighty blow, guard, tackle. It depends on your environment. I like mostly mighty blow, a couple of tackle, probably three mighty blow, 2 guard, 1 tackle. That tackle can be a great safety for you. With movement 6 and strength 4, he's just going to be able to cover the entire backfield. Edge is not great, so if he has to dodge, you're not going anywhere, but as a last ditch event, it's going to be fine. That will be predicated by your league environment, and if it's vanilla, then it is definitely a 3-2-1 situation, because you're likely to come up against guard yourself. Mighty blow is going to help with the removal element, and tackle because there is going to be somebody with dodge somewhere. Chameleon Skink, you're still saving up those SPP. That cheeky skink with sprint is still saving up SPP, as your others are as well. Now, don't get me wrong, they're going to die. Alright, there's going to be times where they die, and that's also why we've not progressed these skinks any further, is because it's possible your chameleon skink is dead. And you've got another one, and he's got diving catch because it's a great skill that combos with OTB brilliantly. And that other skink who took the sprint, maybe he died as well. I don't know. He died. She died, Jill. So there is, however, this wonderful element, and I love this about Blood Bowl 2020, and this is where lizards have an advantage. We've seen it in Dark Elves already. They can save up, they can take the strength skills they could never get before. Now, lizards can always take the general skills that they wanted but could never get before. And skink runners are where it happens. It's going to take a little while, but not really that much if you think about it, okay? Skink, 4 touchdowns, you can take a double. 6 touchdowns, you can take a random stat up. And actually, I really like considering this for a skink. Save up, get 18 SPP. You can bin off all the TV that happens, okay? Your skink is still 60k all the way until you get to make that roll. And when you make that roll, we're looking at what, a 50% chance? No. You basically automatically get +1 movement, or +1 agility, or +1 strength. Everything is good for that skink. Strength, interesting. Take it at your peril. 80k is a huge amount of team value, but it is quite fun. The prospect of having a strength 3 skink could be a really good sacker. And the thing is, if you roll something you don't want to take, you get to take a double skill instead. And Dauntless works wonderfully on a skink. Okay, there is a skink team on the Fumble Secret League, and they've got some Dauntless, the red-crested skinks who start with Dauntless, and they are just underrated. Dauntless, sure hands if you want to have ball carrier, you know, there's a ton of potential. You can just take block and get blodge, because that SPP is going to save up. Your TV does start to raise a bit at this point, but actually I do love the idea of a movement 9 skink for just 80k. That's really good. Then you start having gutter runners. It's really, really, really good. And you can get it. You can automatically get it. If you think about the upgrade chart, I think strength and agility are like, what, 14 and 15 on the dice. So there's a 1 in 8 chance you won't get that. But quite frankly, if It's really up to you whether you turn down an Edge 2+ skink or a Strength 3 skink, but if you do, you can just turn it down and take Dauntless, take Wrestle. You can take those skills that you used to want on a skink badly and could never get. That's why this is so good in this edition. The Crocs can save up and take block if he wants to. Those Sauruses, once they've got these skills, unless you want to chuck something else in there, you can save up. I mean, what is it for a double? Is it 16, 18 at this point? You just save forever. Your team value is going to stay low. It's going to stay low at 1750. It's going to stay low enough for you to then just go and take whatever skill you want, whether it's sidestep, whether it's dodge, whether it's defensive to turn off your opponent's guard. Doesn't matter. You just save up now because you can. It's going to keep your team value absolutely static, and you don't lose anything. You don't lose anything. This makes skinks better. Okay, you can have a whole bunch of blodging skinks in no time at all if you want to pay for it. All you got to do is get 4 touchdowns with a skink. Skinks are going to score touchdowns. Average Lizardman game, 2-3 touchdowns a game. Who's going to be scoring it? Chameleons and skinks. If you start off with 4 or 5 of those players across your first season, they are all probably going to get 3 to 4 touchdowns, and you can just straight up buy doubles. If you want to get sure hands on that chameleon skink, it's going to happen. You're going to achieve it. But at 1750, you're stacked with 4 rerolls. You've got your Apothecary to keep things alive. Your Croxagore is either a Bloxagore or he's rocking guard and brawler and throwing 2.5 die blocks all the time. You've got an army of blocking Saurus with some great tier 2 skills, Mighty Blow, Guard, Tackle in there to your taste. You've got a Chameleon Skink whose diving catch is just helping you speed up your offense. And every game of defense here is just down to you positioning and just destroying your opponent. It's consistent and it is flexible, and honestly, it is a very strong roster. So if you're up for Lizardman, you're up for the Lizardman challenge, this is what your roster could look like about 1750, about 20 games in, and this is terrifying. Anyway, guys, thank you ever so much for watching. Please let me know what you think of Lizards, what other skills you think would be great. Let's have a conversation in the comments, because this is what this is about. This is my optimal list, but there are going to be other people out there who've seen things that I've missed, and I am very excited about it. Anyway, I'm going to disappear now. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the show even further, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Or come and join us in our Patreon, link below, where you get early access to our content and monthly competitions. See you later.